Thank you. Stellar is absolutely correct. We invited the folks from Genspect, to Genspect from WPATH. As you know, it's right across the street. And I think it's like 800 meters away, so it's in the same city at the same time. And the goal of inviting them was not to make an argument, was not to have a conflict, was not to get clicks or to get views, but it was to see if there could be some mutual understanding. What do you believe and why do you believe it? If you know something that we don't know, I want to know what it is. It's no surprise that they did not take us up on that offer. And that's extraordinarily unfortunate for all of us because it doesn't move the conversation forward. So I'm going to change the title of my talk. I spoke to Stella a little bit about this. This is a little bit of a last-minute thing. I'm going to attempt to make arguments better than they could. It's called steelmanning. I'm going to attempt to steelman their positions. And so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to lay a scholastic and epistemological infrastructure for the belief historically. I only have a half an hour, so I have to be very quick. And then I'm going to look at some claims that my friend Reed and I do. We go around the country and we do spectrum street epistemology. We're going to look at those claims in light of the infrastructure that I've discussed. And then what I would like to do is perhaps the most ambitious thing of all, is I would like to take questions from the audience, and I will pretend to be someone who actually believes what I'm talking about. I don't believe what I'm talking about, but I would pretend to believe. But there's only one way that we can make that work, is if you don't give a sermon. If you give a sermon, it's not going to work. So 10 to 15 seconds, come up to the mic, state your position, and then I will attempt to rebut that using, I was going to say reason and evidence, but I don't know, shit luck or something. I don't know how I'm going to rebut it. Okay, so let's take a look at this. In order to make this argument work, you only need one single thing, and that is you just need to look around the room. And you need to acknowledge the fact that there are some women who are more masculine, and there are some women who are more feminine. There are some men who are more masculine, and there are some men who are more feminine. That's why, for example, Anne Pellegrino from New York University says that her pronouns were raped into her. Her pronouns were raped into her. My friend who's here, Colin Wright, the American biologist, would say, well, wait a second, correct me if I'm wrong at the end, we would look at morphology, look at the penis, we look at the vulva. But I'm here to present you with a completely different way to conceptualize this from the paradigm of gender ideology. And if I am successful in this, we can think about why someone would believe this, and then we can engage these claims, hopefully on their own terms. Okay, so we know that there are some men who are more masculine, there are the men who are more feminine, etc. So we have a kind of spectrum. I'm not going to talk about a sex spectrum. We're going to talk about how people present. Let's give a little history of this. Let's situate this in the literature. 1903 or 1913, I think it was 1903, a man by the name of Otto Weininger wrote a book, Sex and Character. Just parenthetically, when Hitler was asked if there was ever a good Jew, he said, yeah, one, Otto Weininger. Weininger was a fascinating guy, Jewish and homosexual, and he hated Jews and hated homosexuals. So it's only appropriate that I'm using Weininger's Sex and Character in this conversation. He said that when you look at relationships, like homosexual relationships, you can see that some men tend toward the masculine, other men tend toward the feminine. And when you look at heterosexual relationships, it's less pronounced, but it's still there. Okay, so I'm just going to give a cursory overview of the literature. In 1949, Simone de Beauvoir wrote The Second Sex. She was a French feminist and author. And she said that a woman is not, you're not born a woman is made, or you become a woman. It's a very important distinction. One becomes a woman. I'm going to skip the 90s, which is some really interesting work. I'm going to jump to Judith Butler's 1990 Gender Trouble, and that I just want to say these are not obscure people I'm talking about. And there's a very simple way. I don't want you to believe anything I say. You can test this yourself. You can go to scholar.google.com. You punch in my name. You can punch in someone's name, and it gives you an H index. that is a number of citations. So these are extremely well-cited people. These are not fringe people in the literature, and we'll talk about that later. So Judith Butler says that gender is performed. You perform it. You perform it through the adornments of the culture. You perform it through gender rituals. I was at a party in Austin a while ago, Austin, Texas, and I met, there were two people, a Native woman and a trans woman on a couch, and I shook the person's hand. I said, hi, my name's Peter, and I can't remember her name is, whatever. And then when the trans woman, and she shook my hand like this. And I thought that was very interesting because she performed what it was to be a woman. Now, lest anyone think that these are just mere philosophical ramblings of people, we have overwhelming evidence from the anthropological literature that the ideas, I'm not going to mention gender, but the way people present sexually, these are not immutable, eternal, timeless, kind of subspecies aeternitatis characteristics or categories of people. And if you haven't read it, I'd highly recommend it, the 1998 book, Travesti, Travesti. It looks at the lives of Brazilian prostitutes. And among the things that it does in that book is it makes the argument there are biological men who get adornments to be women and become prostitutes. And it blurs the gender boundaries. Okay, so we know that these categories, we know that there are categories. We know that certain people present as male and female. We know that the categories that we have are not the same as the categories that other people have. So why would we do this? Why would we be doing this? For this, you need to import another line of literature, another body of literature for this. We need to understand when people are born with a penis and when people are born with a vagina. When someone is born with a penis, they're born into a set of privileges. When someone is born with white skin, they're born with a set of privileges. Alston Bailey has she's a white feminist philosopher. She has an essay in 2017, tracking privilege preserving epistemic pushback. Basically, that means privilege seeks to preserve itself. Derek Bell, the law professor, the Harvard law professor, talks about the only reason whites gave blacks to vote was because they were afraid of an uprising. They didn't do it because they thought it was the right thing to do. They didn't do it for civil rights. They didn't do it for social justice. They didn't do it for any of that. In 1963, Martin Luther King Jr. has a wonderful little essay, letter from a Birmingham jail, in which he talks about, he writes very specifically, the privileged do not voluntarily give up their privilege. The privileged do not voluntarily give up their privilege. So we have extant categories in society that the doctor assigns when he sees you. He assigns you sex at birth, not these specious morphological categories, but he assigns you based upon a physical characteristic. But we know we can look from our eyes and we can see that that is not the case. Okay, so let's take this to another level then. So we know that these categories and people in power and people have privilege don't want to repudiate the privilege. We know that they've codified these in laws and through our institutions. What we don't know, which is perhaps less conspicuous, less naked, is that once you buy into these categories of privilege, you see the world in certain ways. Foucault in 1975 wrote a book, Discipline and Punish. In 1976, he wrote another book about the history of sexuality. And in that, he uses the word power knowledge. Helen Pluckrose is here in the audience. She's written about that very extensively. Some of her work I highly recommend. How French Intellectuals Destroyed the West is a wonderful piece. But Foucault talks about power knowledge. So when you have power knowledge, it's one word, power knowledge. Power and knowledge, you cannot differentiate between them. You're born with a penis, you just see the world a certain way. You're born with a certain skin color, you see the world a certain way. So when we assign these categories at birth, we're consigning people to ways of living in the world in which certain individuals have less privilege based upon an exogenous characteristic. But those characteristics are not immutable. Those characteristics are not fungible. We can change and we can alter those characteristics to yield more privilege and more epistemic authority and more power in our own lives. Okay, so where are we now? So that is, I only have a half an hour, but that was a very brief overview of some of the seminal lines of literature. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that Foucault was currently is the most cited scholar in history. He has the highest H index of anyone in the world. So I don't want people to think I'm cherry picking obscure figures from the history of Western intellectual thought. I am absolutely not doing that in any way. So could we please play some clips?
And I don't think there's ever the most concrete definitions when it comes to nuanced topics. However, you can't just be defining words however you want. And you know that for a fact. Colloquially, things mean things. And colloquially, we all know what that shit means. You cannot describe it as a pastrami sandwich. There is very clear parameters that you can work within. You may disagree on specific nuances, but the overall, like, you can't just describe anything as anything. Words have meaning for a reason.
Like man and woman.
Yeah, trans women are women. Like, I don't... See, you keep trying to get people caught up. What is your point?
We'll see
I suppose you can't change your biological, your chromosomal sex. But if you mean in terms of things like gender-affirming care, like hormones, I think absolutely people under the age of 18 should be allowed to take hormones or hormone blockers if they want. I think, if children can if people under the 18 can make their own medical decisions for other things, then what is that?
Can they?
Well, I think they can in Australia.
Yeah, I can't speak to the island here. Like, what can they change? What can they make medical decisions for under 18?
Well, I mean, for example, if you had a dicky knee and you wanted to get some surgery to fix that,
you don't need your parents' signature?
Well, you could decide if you're, I think, over 16, you could say, I want to get this knee surgery. And the thing is, knee surgery has a much, much, much higher regret rate than things like, double mastectomies for
knee surgery has a higher
regret rate. It's something like 30-40% people regret getting their knee surgery because it doesn't have the results they wanted. People who've had gender-affirming surgery, very small amount of them regret that. A large proportion of the people who regret it is because they're still not accepted by their community or they face even worse abuse because they had that surgery.
Okay. Testing. Okay, so the first one was from the United States. This one, the last clip, was from Australia. And a key is see if you can distill this, and then now that the infrastructure is more or less laid, you can situate the claim so you can understand, while he may not know Judith Butler or Foucault or Alison Bailey or what have you, you can see how that idea germinates in the soil of the literature. Okay, that was at Flinders Station in Australia. Next one.
Not having that option to have medical care to affirm your gender would be detrimental to a child.
So this is the question then, if I have understood this correctly. The question then is, at what age?
I think...
Because you use the word child. At what age does that mean to you? I mean below 18, above, below, no? Yeah.
Below, I think a child can make a decision probably as young as 5, 6, 7 years old.
Okay. Okay, so none of these people are actors. That was in Puerto Rico. Next one.
There are people who are 18 and they are considered adults, but they think like maybe 15 or 14 years old. And there are people who are 14 or 15 years old and they are thinking like 20 years old or even older people. And I think that's why this should be researched and taught through therapy. And maybe under these circumstances, people under 18 should be allowed to change their sex. And it all resumes to how they're thinking and
so if
their maturity
If
level.
they had therapy and a psychologist said, this person is trapped in the wrong body, they're 12, you that's your best argument that you have?
Yeah.
Okay, that was from Romania. And again, you see the theme thematically. You see it come up and in it. I think you have one more or two more? One more. Cool.
I guess there's a cautionary tale here that kids find a way, trans people find a way, eunuchs find a way. Just like eunuchs end up going to cutters, I ended up finding a doctor to prescribe me medroxyprogesterone. And I was like 13 or 14, you know. And this is why gender affirming care, we need it. We need it to be accessible to kids and their families so that kids like me who are experiencing these like intense dysphorias related to their bodies and their changing bodies can get safe care. Because if I really reflect on it, the care that I got, as much as I needed it, it was pretty dangerous. And providers like me, one of the reasons we share stories like this is we really want things to be safe. We really want kids to have really good assessments. We really want to walk with them through this process. And if they need things like blockers to continue working through that process, that should be available.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to thank Travis Brown for those clips. Travis, if you don't know Travis, he's a documentarian. He's right there in the back. He also travels around with us. He does some fantastic work. Thank you, Travis. Okay, so the next step is what I want to do, and this is more on you than it is on me. Come up and present. If you can do it in a single sentence, fantastic. If you can do it in a syllogism, even better. Come up and present, and you got the mic. 1 sentence, 2, absolutely no more than 3, and let's see if we can do this. I know we can do this. Your best argument for why what you think I've said is incorrect.
Well, I was just going to make the argument that adults should be able to do whatever they want what they want with their body because they have bodily autonomy.
Yeah, that would be my argument as well, but if I believe this, but it also extends to children. So that is reinforcing my position, so she agrees with me. Who's next? And make sure we get over to the gender scholars, to the actual biologists over there.
I think you've profoundly misunderstood the nature of a child, and that you've detached the reality of a child from a symbolic meaning of a child, and you're using the symbolic meaning of the child for your own purposes, and you've abandoned the reality of what a child actually is.
Nazi. No, I'm just kidding there. I'm just kidding. No, so the idea is that people from very young ages, and we know this from self-reports, suffer from severe gender dysphoria. We know that this is true, and we know that we can alleviate this, and this has nothing to do with symbolism. This has to do with the lived experiences of those people. And it is impossible for somebody to tell someone else that their lived experience is not correct.
Have you considered that young people, before they've had a boyfriend or girlfriend, have no concept of a sex life?
Yeah, I mean, there are many people who are also asexual. There are many people who participate in different forms of sexuality, but that doesn't have anything to do with the fact that they're trapped in the wrong body. Hi.
Hi. So this is kind of on behalf of Jesper, who had to leave. 2-part question really quick. Number 1, can you guarantee that the identity of a child will be stable in the long term? And part 2, if you can't, is it okay to sacrifice some children's bodies with these interventions to benefit the kids who are stable?
Okay, so the first question is, can I guarantee the identity of... How can you clap? You haven't even heard my response. Can I guarantee... Well, if somebody transitions and they say, oh, no, I've made a mistake, well, then they weren't really trans. So no, there are no guarantees in life. There are no guarantees that when I walk out here, I won't be hit by a bus.
So then part 2, are you willing to sacrifice the healthy bodies of some children if their identities aren't stable?
Yeah, so am I willing to sacrifice the healthy bodies of some children? I think that the experience of transitioning, even if you're not trans, might be a good learning experience for people. Okay, now you can clap. We lost somebody. We're losing people with that one. Yeah, someone with the mic, yeah.
My problem with your position is, in your world, illusion and the risk for illusion doesn't exist.
Illusion or delusion? Which did you say?
Illusion.
No, illusion certainly exists. But the fact is, in a very serious sense, we all have our lived experience, and there's no way to contravene those. So it's not that somebody is living an illusion or a life of delusion or subject to a delusion, or as Abigail Schreier and Colin and other people said, it's not that those people are subject to a contagion. It's that those people, there's no there there. There's nothing to be wrong about because itself is a construct. These are categories that have been constructed by society. So there's no that gets back to her question, there's no stable entity that one can point to. By the way, if you have a chance, I would highly recommend the wonderful paper, The Conceptual Penis as a Social Construct. The average number of papers cited in the thank you, that you should clap extra for, is 0 and 1. That paper was cited some crazy number of times. Whoever has the mic. Yes, hello.
Hello. It seems to me your argument's based on external characteristics of sex. I don't think you're quite going back to the source. So I'm thinking DNA, go a bit further back. Your argument's just
I don't accept.
Not here.
I think that those are ersatz. I think that those are specious ways, morphology. I think that those distinctions. So listen, this is the argument. So everybody has a narrative that they buy into. When Billboard Chris and I, where's Chris? He was around here. So we were on the streets the other day, and someone was telling us that he just has his story, somebody else has their story. Your story is no better than my story. Biology is a narrative. The philosopher Derrida calls it, an incredulity toward meta-narratives. He just has his narrative, I have my narrative. There's no way to adjudicate between those two. My narrative is just as good as your narrative, and we know that everything is a construct anyway. Next.
Professor, you seem like a very nice man. Let me just say that.
Uh-oh. We haven't been drinking together yet. No, go ahead.
Why do you and the doctors that you are friends with in the medical community even bother assigning male and female at birth? Why?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Where did he go? I don't think that we should assign those categories. In fact, one of the papers that my writing partner James Lindsay and Helen Pluckrose and I have proposed is something called pre-epistemic transgenderism, and that as people don't know what we didn't say gendered soul, as people don't know their true gender identity, if we just immediately castrate everyone from birth, subsequently they can figure out what their gender identity is and solve the problem that way. So no one would suffer genuine distress since it's all a construct anyway. Next. Where are we next?
I think it's me.
Oh, no. How are we doing on time?
So, Peter, what I'm hearing you say is that each person knows themselves and they get to define their own gender identity. Because nobody knows, and nobody else can know anything about yourself.
Correct.
What when two people have different ideas about the categories and they have to interact? Who wins then?
So what do you mean? Like somebody thinks that they're...
So you think you're a woman and I think you're a man. Like, which of us gets to win?
Oh, the person making the claim gets to win.
Why?
Because, oh no, are we doing on time? No, because I don't know, man. I don't know. Okay, well.
Oh, do we have? Is this on? Okay. If my daughter is dating a girl, do I have to worry about her getting pregnant? And why or why not?
If your daughter is dating a girl, so you're asking me to root this in biology? Is that you trying to trick me into doing that? If your daughter is dating, they identify as girls. Do you have to worry about them getting pregnant? Are they romantically involved when you say dating? Is that a euphemism for like? Physical intimacy?
They're romantic.
No, don't worry about it at all. Next. Why or why not? Okay. Why does she not have to worry about it? Let's see. If the girl, so let me just make sure I have this correct. If someone who self-identifies as a girl is having sex with another girl who doesn't have a penis, the other girl does not have a penis. Does the other girl have a penis? Why do I care about genitals? Can that person get pregnant? I'm going to come back to you on that. Give me next. These are getting harder. These are getting more difficult. I'm being exposed as a charlatan. Okay.
Okay, my question is, should we affirm every
Yes.
identity of a child? So say that my 5-year-old believes that she's a horse. And so what are the criteria for, is it only in this arena?
No,
that
it's
he believes a
everything.
child?
And there's a wonderful little YouTube video about a man who lives as a goat. He gets artificial, this is true, he gets artificial prostheses, he walks around in these fields, he's great. We should affirm him too. Who's next?
Should gender dysphoria be a required diagnosis for invasive medical care, including what's provided by insurers or the
Absolutely
government?
not. No, absolutely not, because it's not the idea itself is constructed by society, so no. Next.
So if we can't prove that gender identity exists, why should we be removing people's healthy body parts upon that premise that it can be mismatched from biological sex, which is also unchangeable anyways?
Okay, so let me make sure I have this right. So why should we, so doesn't that question assume there's something negative or dangerous about removing someone's genitals? Okay, well, I'm going to make the claim that that's not the case. It's just another way to be in the world. Next.
Yeah, so if you think...
Where are you? I can't see you.
Hello, hi.
Oh, hello.
Yeah, so if you think humans can be transgender, can animals be transgender as well?
Yes, animals, Jesus, everybody except Muhammad. Muhammad is not transgender. Make sure that goes out everywhere.
Hello. Can I identify as a trans woman?
Yes. Next. Hi.
Hi, is there any category of physical or mental illness that should preclude sex change?
What do you mean? Say that again? The accent is throwing me. Say it again.
I'm Australian.
Another island, Helen. Yeah, please.
Is there any category of mental or physical illness that would preclude gender reassignment?
Absolutely not. Unequivocally, unconditionally, and unshakably, no.
If we accept that children can consent to irreversible surgeries, is there a risk that unscrupulous people might also say they can consent to sex?
What'd you say? Hello? Okay. Is there... what happened? Hello? Testing? Hello? See that? I'm letting my voice shine through now. So is there a risk that's... Okay, so there are lines of literature called minor attractive persons, people who are attracted to minors, and to be absolutely clear, because someone's going to clip this 5,000 times on the internet, 50,000 times. The people who advocate for that would say no. It's just another form of sexuality. What did Aleister Crowley say from the island there? If there is no grace, there is no guilt. This is the law. Do what thou willst. Next.
So if you have a cisgender man and a transgender woman, and they're together, how do you figure out who's the racist? Well,
fortunately, we have the work of Robin DiAngelo, Ta-Nehisi Coates, We have the work of Ibram X. Kendi. They're all racist. Thank you very much. I hope that was fun for everybody.